Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar. Today we'll be focused on the topic of why do I need a PPM data warehouse if I'm using or I'm thinking about implementing Microsoft's Project Online solution. We do have some upcoming events that may be of interest to you. We have a webinar coming up next month in the month of April, on April 28th, focused on how you can better manage costs and finances in Microsoft Project Online. We'll go through some best practices and some experience with the tools. Additionally, we have some in-person events. We have a PPM Summit and hands-on workshop we're going to be sponsoring in Nashville, Tennessee with Microsoft, April 25th. And we have some regional summits we're actually going to be co-sponsoring with Microsoft. One is in New York City on April 4th, one in Nashville on April 12th, and finally one in Atlanta on May 11th. If you're interested in signing up for these or any of our future webinars or events, you can reach out to us at info@projility.com. Attention, sign me up. Likewise, as we go through our webinar, if you have any questions, you can hit the conversation or Q&A manager on the left side of your panel in Skype for Business, and we will take those questions towards the end. Additionally, all the sessions we do deliver are recorded, and they're all available on our Vimeo website from 2015, 2016, and now our 2017 webinar series. So if you'd like links to those as well, you can go to vimeo.com and you just search up Projility. You'll see 2016 webinars and 2015 as well. Likewise, you can hit our blog, projility.com blog, for all of our written content that's out there. As a quick introduction, my name is Rob Hirschman, partner at a company called Projility. I'll be talking a little more about Projility in a second. I've got about 15 years of experience in the PPM or project portfolio management space with working with large enterprises and helping them plan, implement, support, and train. Partner at Projility since 2005. And if you don't know Projility, we're a focused PPM consultancy. Typically, we work with clients that have chosen to work with Projility. They're looking for best practices and Microsoft software to address some of their PPM challenges. Without that, a lot of them get worried about going over budget and taking too much time to implement their software. What we do is we mold our expertise around the customization, cost, and our Hammerhead software, which is very unique in the market, which reduces an organization's time, effort, and investment. Finally, our clients that are often frustrated over a lack of ongoing support, they look to Projility, as we have a dedicated support organization to help them actually succeed during the adoption and implementation phases and beyond, which is one of the most critical parts of any deployment of a PPM technology. So if you have any challenges, needs in these areas, feel free to reach out to us. Our core content today, agenda, we're going to be talking a little bit about the differences between on-premise reporting and reporting in the cloud, which is going to drive right into our discussion about why do we need a PPM data warehouse. And this really came from working with clients over the last 3.5 years that have been deploying Project Online in an enterprise-type environment. We'll talk about some of the benefits of moving to a data warehousing strategy with your PPM data, and finally we'll go through different options, a build versus a buy. Should I build the warehouse? Should I buy the warehouse? What are the different options and what does it take to get there? Again, if you have any questions, log them in the Q&A manager and we'll take those towards the end. So let's start with a quick explanation of on-premise reporting. If you're familiar with Project Server, 2013, 2016, even the 2010 or 2007 version, we have a PPM application which is delivering all of the functionality around project management, resource management, portfolio management, time tracking, collaboration, and reporting. That PPM application is connected to a back-end database. In this case, it's SQL Server, which creates the Project Server reporting database. And what we do when we're doing reporting in an on-premise environment, we have a predefined table structure and a reporting schema that Microsoft gives us, which is really great and makes it easy. We can then access that data in those tables that have already been established with the relationships in place and create and publish different kinds of reports we're looking for. Very straightforward, like any on-premise solution that you've seen in any industry. We can use SQL reporting services, Excel, etc. So an on-premise reporting solution looks like that. When we move to the cloud, things fundamentally change, and really understanding how cloud architecture works and how you get to your data can really drive your approach to reporting. Just like on-premise, we have a PPM application connecting into a Project Server reporting database that's sitting in SQL Server. But what's really different is this is all hosted, delivered, and managed in the cloud. And that is a huge difference because Microsoft is managing that not just for you, but for thousands of other companies. And they need to do that consistently in order to ensure consistency, management, SLAs. That's all being managed in a protected cloud that's a part of Office 365. So Microsoft has agreements in place with customers like yourself in how that gets delivered, controlled, and managed. And with that in mind, they have to treat all those environments the same from a security perspective and access perspective. So they don't allow customization and direct access to that database, which becomes challenge one. We then can extract the information from that cloud reporting architecture using a format or a protocol called ODATA. So if you're moving to the cloud, get used to ODATA because it's there and it's there to stay. ODATA stands for Open Data Protocol, and it's an HTTPS way we can tap into the data that's in that database in a structured, controlled way and suck that data out and do different things with it. So these individual feeds that Microsoft has created for OData, we have a feed for project information, we have a feed for resource information, a feed for assignment information, which is a task and a resource smashed together. We have a feed for different tasks, a feed for risks, a feed for issues, and a feed for all the other information. So you can see in a cloud architecture, we have access to all of this, and then there comes some questions. We have some options now. What do we do with those feeds of data? Unlike a relational database, we can't just hit those and create things with it. We can, but there's some challenges with that we're going to go through in a couple of minutes. So we can hit the feeds with a reporting tool and build out a structure from there. But then we're caught with building out a structure for each report and a data model for each report, which isn't necessarily repeatable or scalable. We then need to stage that data or create a data model based on the reporting needs of the organization. We may have to create multiple data models. We may have to create a mechanism for storing that data. So you can see when we go from on-premise, it's very direct. When we're in the cloud, we really have to come up with a strategy for how we're going to do enterprise reporting around this information. So let's give you a little bit of background on OData. It's a phrase you're going to hear a lot from a reporting perspective with information coming in and out of the Microsoft cloud. The first thing about OData, being very, very honest, is it's slow. What it does is it extracts the complete data set on an as requested basis. So if I were to open Excel, tap into an OData feed for projects, and suck all that information out, it's going to go record by record and take all that information and move it out into whatever destination I'm pointing to. So it's taking those out on a one-by-one extract, and it's flowing those out. So I have limitations. I have physical limitations based off of the bandwidth I have. We have limitations around how often OData times out after a certain amount of time. So you can see there are some challenges from a speed perspective in hitting OData. So if you think about it, I start pulling out multiple feeds, projects, resources, assignments, issues, and risks. That can take a lot of time, and it can get a little bit frustrating. With OData, we also have what we call data set content. So data sets include the core project, resource, and custom field information. So we get access to the data, which is really great, but it doesn't include any custom information you may create, for instance, on your SharePoint sites. So let's say you go into a SharePoint site and create a standard template that has a list of benefits, or maybe change controls, or action items, or stakeholder decisions. That information is not natively available in OData. So if you're doing any changes to the system and modifying in SharePoint, you're not going to be able to get to that data through OData, which is a reporting challenge. It also does not bring over any kind of text formatting, things like bullets, indentations, which is really important for any kind of project status reporting you're going to do. So there are some data set content limitations around OData. Finally, the data doesn't include a data model in any way. It's just a dump of all the data. And we can filter that and say, okay, only give me the first 50 or 100 or 200 records, or come up with a query for that built into the HTTPS call for OData, but it doesn't include a data model that talks about relationships between data. So that's something that OData is not capable with, that we need to start thinking about. What is my strategy going to be for enterprise reporting for PPM? This is a little background in OData and how it works and some of the challenges. Let's give you an example of OData Performance. So let's say we wanted to pull out project data. We want to pull out information on 300 projects. Each project has 10 fields of information. There's 3,000 records if we do the math there. And let's say we've got 50 other fields of data on each project, such as baseline and actuals and percent complete, whatever those are. So we're looking at pulling about 150,000 individual records in any given time. And that can take a little bit of time when you think about it, from pulling it over an internet connection, and it's going record by record, and then it's going to drop that data off to me. That can be a little bit challenging. So let's say we've got 150,000 records. But now where the bigger challenge comes in, if we start looking at resource information. And resource and what we call assignment data is where we're pulling what we call a time-phased snapshot of timesheet information. So that's every day and every hour that's been logged for a resource over a period of time. So we now go from 150,000 records to, let's take a look at these numbers. 300 people are tracking time, which is a reasonable middle-sized deployment. 300 timesheets are being submitted a week. If we have an average of 15 line items per timesheet, 75 data elements on each timesheet, 75 fields. Let's multiply that by 52 times because we have to do for 1 week every year. And you can see we have over 17 million records, individual records we're going to be pulling from Project Online through OData in this pipe that's going to create information for our reports. And then if we want to bring that information together with different feeds, we have to merge that together. So the bottom line is it's a heck of a lot of data to pull over. It's going to take a lot of time, and it really taxes what OData can and can't do. It can frustrate users if your thought is, I'm just going to open Excel, tap into OData, and get all my data. Well, if you're doing project data, you're probably okay. If you're doing assignment data, it's probably not going to work too well for you. So that's where we start looking at an enterprise strategy. So let's back up a little bit and give you a little bit of background on data warehousing and what a data warehouse is. A data warehouse, Bill Inman describes it as, it's a large data store that accumulates this data from a set of defined sources within your organization and is used to guide management decisions. So we're getting the data so we can look at it, we can slice and dice it and say what's trending from a sales or marketing or project management perspective so we can make go-forward decisions. That's the purpose of a data warehouse in an enterprise. Some different components that are important in data warehouses. They're organized based off of what we call a schema or a star schema, which is a logical method that's going to create relationships between different data elements that are in our database that makes that data quicker and more efficient to access. One of the second key components of a data warehouse is these schemas that we're creating are designed and built based off the reporting needs. So different organizations may have different reporting needs. The idea that you're just going to take whatever schema was built for company A and lay it into organization B, generally that's not always a good approach. You want to think about the needs your organization has and design your schema around that. Then what a data warehouse is going to do, it's going to perform what we call an ETL, or an extract, transform, and load set of activities that's going to take that data, it's going to take it out of the source system, it's going to transform it over, and then it's going to load it into the data warehouse in a way that you don't impact the performance of that system. So if we start hitting multiple OData feeds, we're pulling timesheet and assignment information out, we want to do this multiple times a day, you can imagine how taxing that can be on the environment. So the ETL process is typically done as a back-end process, and it's being done in an automated way to save everybody time. Keeping in mind that data warehouses are purely historical in nature. So unlike where you go into Project Online and you look at a series of views, those are transactional. The minute I make a change to a schedule and publish it, it's going to show up in one of my views. That's live or near live data. Data warehouses are historical in some nature. So that means we're always going to be looking backwards for a certain snapshot. It could be a day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years, but it's a snapshot or a look back at a certain point in time at that information. It's never going to be real time, but we can make it near real time depending on your reporting requirements, which plays into your strategy for both your schema and how frequently you do ETLs. So there's different important components to a data warehouse you want to think about when you're developing your strategy. So the big question, why do I need a PPM data warehouse? What is a PPM data warehouse going to give me that Project Online with OData is not going to give me? Well, Project Online, first and foremost, does not provide you with access to data beyond OData. So if we're looking at it, we only have, or we're constrained by data that's stored in it's available through OData feeds. It does not provide, importantly, the structure required to do any kind of complex enterprise reporting. That's something you're going to have to develop as an organization. And when we talk about complex reporting, we're talking about the storage of your data and access to that data on or offline, which sometimes you're not connected to your network and you need to tap in and start doing some analytics or reporting. Or maybe the finance group comes to you and says, hey, I got to do some reporting. I need you to give me this data at this point in time. That's something that's going to be pretty hard to go and specify and ask, hey, Microsoft, how do I get this? You need to put that in some kind of a staged data mechanism like a warehouse. Also, remember, Project Online is not going to provide you with those relationships between the data elements. It's going to provide you with the core raw data, and then you're going to be able to establish those relationships as you need them. So what a PPM data warehouse can provide you, it can pull data both through OData and then something called CSOM, which is Microsoft Project Online's API, or Application Programming Interface. You think about it, that is a way you can tap into a system, typically to do integration, where I need to have different calls or actions, and say I'm going to take timesheet information from Project Online and move it to SAP. Or I'm going to take information from my HR system and keep Project Online resource information or metadata up to date. That's how we typically use our API. But we can also use our API to extract information and then do a transform and load into a data warehouse. It's much more efficient than OData because it's actually coming as a back-end process. It's programmable, so we can say exactly what we want and don't want. It provides us with that direct data access, things like formatted fields. All that's going to come over that we don't get through OData. And it also gives us access to larger data sets, things like SharePoint custom lists, timesheet data that's not OData, all of the other information we might need that we can't get through ODATA, we can get to through CSOM. So that's the value. One of the value points is you're going to get all the data you need versus a subset of it in really a limited basis. That's what a PPM data warehouse can do. So it really comes down to those business questions that I mentioned in the beginning of our session here. It's important for you and the PMO, if you're supporting it, to understand things like project progress or resourcing or trending or tracking any kind of key decisions or changes over time. Those are the questions you're going to want to ask. You want to design your schema and your reporting and your warehouse around those. You also want to start asking the question about what information would be required to make key business decisions across the portfolio. Start thinking forward about other questions that may be asked by other groups, finance, accounting, HR, not just the PMO. So these are the things that are really going to drive the build out of your design and your schema. Now you can start to see how it's important that you involve your key stakeholders in the process and design. So what we thought we'd do is make this a little more interesting, give you top 10 reasons why we think you need a data warehouse, a PPM data warehouse for Project Online. This is actually coming from experience with the platform over the last 3.5 years, which ranged from initially when the system went live, fairly frustrating, there was no reporting approach, to now we're 3.5, almost 4 years into the life cycle. It's fairly mature. We have a lot of experience with a lot of customers that have done this, and we've come up with some solutions we'll present as well. So the number 10 reason you need a PPM data warehouse, there's a pretty good chance that the next question that someone is going to ask that requires a report may not be there right now. You may not have a design for that report. You may not have thought of that field yet. You may not have thought of the relationship between that field and the report. You may not have thought of how you're going to capture that information in PPM. So there's always the chance that new questions are going to come up that you're going to need to build a design around. You need a flexible data warehouse to support that. And without a data warehouse, you're going to have a hard time getting to that data. Number 9, when your management team wants a new view of the data, when do they want it? They want it right now. And no one has the patience to wait for you to sync or download or design. Telling them it's going to take weeks to get something they need versus days and hours, which was they're expecting from IT and the PMO, that's really where you need to get to. So management is definitely going to be all over this. Number 8, PMOs obviously need to be very, very responsive to new demands, both from the business and IT, especially with today's expectations around what we call BI self-service. When we talk about that, there's really the expectation that I can go into, as a manager, a dashboard, look at my information, drag and drop and slice and dice that in the way I need it, and use that to make a business decision. That's where BI is today. That's where it's been headed for years. And there are tools like Power BI that are out there today that allow for self-service analytics, but you have to provide the data, you have to provide the approach and the schema so someone can ask the right questions and have access to the information and the relationships they need. Otherwise, it's all going to be garbage to them. Number 7, if the PMO doesn't deliver the information users want, they're going to call somebody to get it, or they're going to start managing it on the side or start building out spreadsheets. It's going to go against the goals you have with implementing a centralized core PPM solution. And if they don't get it from you, they're going to get it from someone, and then there's always the chance that they start losing faith that PPM can work in the organization. So this is definitely a risk in that people ask for things that you can't deliver to them. A day is going to come, number 6, when you're going to be asked for a historical view of your data for some reason important to the business. Often it's compliance, or an annual audit, or regulatory reasons, for things like Sarbanes-Oxley or HIPAA. Someone's going to want to take that data, move it somewhere, and spend weeks and weeks and months, probably auditors, going through all your data. You can't do that if you have a live data feed that's coming out of the cloud. You need to have a snapshot of your data that you can really own and deliver, and that's the value of a PPM data warehouse. Number 5, you really do need to think about how you're going to own your data. If you think about it on-premise, you're owning your data. The database is yours. The data is yours. You can do whatever you want with it. You can move it. You can virtualize it. You can make copies of that database. In the cloud, you're basically renting the system and you're renting access to that data. So what that means is the day you actually turn Project Online off is the day your data goes away, and Microsoft will get rid of your tenant. So you need a good strategy for owning your data and grabbing that data and being able to access it anytime you need it, even if your system goes away. And that's obviously one of the benefits of the cloud, is that's all being managed by a company like Microsoft. One of the downsides is you don't get access to it anytime you want. They can't just drop a database in your lap. Number 4, your PPM solution definitely deserves a real enterprise reporting strategy. If you're not thinking about an enterprise reporting strategy for PPM, then you're going to be falling behind, and you're not going to be able to deliver the information you need to stakeholders. And then as PPM gets more embedded, you want to integrate it with finance and accounting and HR information. They're going to ask for that information because they probably already have it for their groups. So they're going to see PPM as really an inferior technology, an inferior solution if you can't deliver this and have a reporting strategy. In fact, a lot of PMOs get ahead of this by developing this reporting strategy, bringing that to the business, and then incorporating those businesses into their PPM system so they're driving the strategy instead of waiting for it to be driven by a different group. Number 3, ODATA, as we mentioned, reporting directly against Project Online will disappoint and frustrate you. It's something where you think you can get away with it, you can think you can get away with out of the box up front, and within 4 or 5 months, you're just not going to be happy. You're going to need a real strategy for getting reports out of your system, and it doesn't rely purely on OData going into Excel. Not everybody can live with Excel unless they have the data that's being fed to them from a proper source. Number 2, and very importantly, and this is really important for CIOs, CTOs, people that are looking to make enterprise decisions on PPM, your PPM system really needs to be future-proofed. It needs to be flexible, and it needs to be designed in a way that you're thinking about not only what are the needs now, but what are your needs going to be in 6, 12, 18, 24 months when you've got tons of data out there. And I laid out some of those numbers. If you do 3 years of time tracking with 300, 400, 500 resources, you're up to 15, 20 million records that are in your system. You don't want to wait till that point to start designing a reporting strategy because that can get very, very painful. You want to design your core reporting strategy, your core schema now, and build around that. And that's when you really want to do it, is upfront in the life cycle of your deployment. And finally, number 1 on the top 10 reasons you need a PPM data warehouse for Project Online. You can use your PPM system to validate the value PPM is providing through the PMO and make it strategic. Once you have the data, you can start doing trending, analytics, and actually improve your performance. And that's something a lot of businesses can't say they can do today with PPM or any system that's out there. Most systems are backwards looking. The great thing about a PPM system, it's forward looking. It lets you actually do forecasting and validation on that forecasting and see, how did I do on past projects? Let me go and update my templates so I improve on my forecasting and how I do. So it really helps position PPM as a solid investment so you continue to get funding and resources to support it. So these are the top 10 reasons we think you need a PPM data warehouse for Project Online. So the next question most people ask, kind of getting to the chase here, is how do I get one? Well, there's really 2 ways you can get a PPM data warehouse. You can build it or you can buy it. Just like with any technology, you have lots of options. Let's start with the build. So let's say we have to have the skills, the knowledge, and the expertise in both data warehousing and Project Online and PPM to get the job done if we're going to build it. We have to know that stuff. We also have to have knowledge of the data approach and the model that's in Project Online. How do we get to the data? Are we going to use OData? Are we going to use a combination of OData and CSOM? What's our approach going to be? And we have to have that knowledge or that skill base in-house, or we outsource it to consultants. Finally, we really do need the experience with reporting from some version of Project Server or some PPM solution so we know the right questions to ask and how to design around that. So if you're going down a build road, think about skills, knowledge base, and expertise in specific PPM domains. Then we have to look at the time and the money to do it. So we've actually been asked to estimate some of this by some clients, and an average to build a basic data warehouse for PPM from scratch, you're looking at really a 4 to 6 month build with multiple resources, and from a cost perspective, on the low end, anywhere from $125,000 up to $200,000 to $250,000 if you're using external labor, including business analysis, reporting expertise, technical expertise. You can be looking at upwards of $250,000 to build out a PPM data warehouse. So if you're going to be building it, you want to think about the resources, the time, and the money involved. You also have the option, as with most software packages, to buy it. And there's third-party products out there that can support your data access, storage, and reporting requirements. So buying is always a good way to do it because essentially by buying the software, paying for maintenance, you're relying on a third party to keep that information up to date, so you don't have to keep a full staff of people that just know PPM data warehousing there. You can actually outsource that and pay for that within your license costs, which is something most clients like, and it really fits into their business model. So just to give you a little background, at Projility, we have a product called Hammerhead Projects. What Hammerhead Projects is, it's an add-on project, and it actually started its life with Project Server 2010 and 2013 as a way you could actually build out dashboards within that platform. Clients came to us and said, this is great, we have all this data in our reporting database, what can we do with it? So we built a bunch of pre-built reports and dashboards. With the advent of Project Online, we were approached by Microsoft, and we had a lot of conversations about helping customers gain access to that data in a canned, productized way. That's essentially what we've done. We've actually deployed this, and it's a technology you can buy that has a pre-built PPM data warehouse, first and foremost, and all the value that that data warehouse provides. It has a schema, it has relationships built in, it has a data model built in, and it also has something called a synchronization engine, which supports your extract, transform, and load, your ETL, on a scheduled basis. So you can pull data every 4 hours, 8 hours, 12, or 24 hours in different increments depending on how fresh you want that data to be. Additionally, it provides on-demand synchronization for specific data elements. So let's say a project manager forgot to publish their project on Friday, comes in on Monday and wants to run a status report. Whoops, you missed the window for the sync. Well, instead of having to resync your entire data warehouse, what you can do is you can click off the name of their projects and their resources and just sync that delta. Pull that over. It takes a very short amount of time, and then they can run their reports. So it supports not only bulk with the sync engine, but on-demand synchronization of specific data elements, which is something a lot of customers ask for. It also includes the additional data we talked about that you may have in PPM that's not natively available in ODATA. Things like SharePoint custom lists for changes and decision points, and also the formatting of text fields, which is really important if you're trying to extract that information and maybe put it into a report or Power BI with bullets. So maybe you want all the accomplishments this period. They're captured in a custom field. You want to extract that out, transform it, and load it in, and then report off it. ODATA doesn't allow you to do that. We can do that with Hammerhead projects and our sync engine. It also includes fully integrated SQL reporting services, which is a reporting tool that people have been using for years to report out a project server. And now you can create your reports and deliver them. Likewise, you can take any SQL Server reporting services reports you have on-premise, project server, migrate them over to online now, and they're fully supported because our schema is one that matches the previous project server database, in addition to all the data that's being added there. So it makes migration a lot easier from an on-premise solution. Also, we provide connectivity into Power BI, which is Microsoft's self-service add-on product in Office 365 that allows for dynamic dashboarding and reporting, so you can get to that data and have those schemas ready in Power BI for self-service and executive reporting. Additionally, it is deployed as an application technically in Project Online and SharePoint Online, so there's the app side. It gets installed into the application environment in Office 365. And that database, that data warehouse, can really live anywhere you want it to be. So what the app is doing, it's talking to that data warehouse. The data warehouse is then synchronizing with your Project Online instance and pulling the data, and that data warehouse can live wherever you want. It can be on your servers on-premise. It can be on cloud servers like Azure or any other cloud service you use to host your infrastructure, your applications. So we can put that database anywhere you want. So there's flexibility around that. That allows you to really define how you're going to own your data and where it's going to live. And as a bonus, the tool, and I talked about the kind of the beginnings of the life of the tool, includes that pre-built set of role-based dashboards for your program and your portfolio managers, project managers, executives, and team members. So you get dashboards with the tool as well that you can use if you like. The value really is in that data warehouse and that synchronization engine, allowing you to own your data and drive reporting through SQL reporting services, Power BI, Excel, whatever reporting tool you want to use. If you'd like more information on Hammerhead projects, you can contact us. We'll set up a demo, give you an overview. We also have a couple of web links and videos, info@projility.com. Likewise, you can hit our website at projility.com/hammerhead. And with that, we're going to hop over to some Q&A. Our goal today was really to provide you with an overview of the value of building out a PPM data warehouse, what that can bring to the organization, and why it's important if you're trying to move towards an enterprise reporting PPM strategy with Project Online. If you have any questions, we'll take them in the Q&A manager. We're just going to put our contact information up. I'm Rob Hirschman, partner with Projility, rob@projility.com, as well as you can hit our blog, Projility.com, and we have one specific to this topic: why do I need a PPM data warehouse? We appreciate everybody joining our webinar today, and we're going to answer some questions.